Live now.
All right. This is the Node CTC meeting for January 25th. I'm going to go ahead and start the stand-up if my laptop will cooperate. Sure, I'll actually be able to see the list. Who's the first one up? I'm not able to actually look at the list. Let's see. Is Anna here yet?
She wrote no audio in the chat, so.
So Bradley?
I don't have any real updates. We're just at TC39. Next week we'll have the vote on sync versus async loader. So.
Okay, so next is Nikita.
I don't have anything worth to mention today here. So next one is Colin.
Yeah, nothing out of the usual to say. Reviewing issues and pull requests, opened a few pull requests of my own. Next is, I think, Jeremiah.
Just the miscellaneous issues. Other than that, some ES modules stuff, the sync versus async loader thing. Next would be, is Tracy here? Probably not. So Fedor. Some ES modules.
Yeah, so not too much for me. So since last time we talked, it was quite a while ago, I worked on trying to hack and crack V8's hash seed within the process and externally. So it turns out you can do it remotely yet. So we are kind of safe. Also, I was participating in all Node call with V8 team. The V8 team is now aware of all Node and I think selected. So, but I'll leave this up to them. Also worked on some iOS apps, which is completely unrelated to this call, and as usual, fixing bugs and reviewing pull requests. Next is James.
This week at TC39, I've been working on HTTP2 more and reviewing and landing PRs. Josh.
Yeah, sorry I missed last week. So we held a diagnostics working group meeting at the end of last week. So generally trying to move inspector stuff and trace controller stuff forward. We got Node Inspect moved into the foundation a couple days ago. And I've been doing a little work with the security working group. Next is Michael Dawson.
Right, I'm catching up from being on vacation last week, so looking at some issues, reviewing, commenting, landing. A little bit of fix-up for code coverage and benchmarking pages that were messed up by a change to the style location, and starting to look at a mod to the SmartOS job so we can land the updated V8 version, basically to make it not fail and just fake out, like basically not run on that on SmartOS 14, and but not fail the job. Next is Julian here. No. Michael Rogers here. Brian White.
Okay, so I mostly just was working on my optimization PRs that I had out there and landed some of them either or last night. Other than that, just normal reviewing PRs and commenting on issues. Next is Ali.
Yeah, hi. So I was working on a few things. There were some API changes in V8 5.7 that I was with related debugs that I'm working with the V8 team on trying to figure out how to make them work with Node. And there was a regression in V8 5.7 on Acme Air that helped isolate and got it reverted in V8 5.7. And beyond that, working with Matthew Loring on FFI. That's pretty much it. I'm on the phone, so I don't know who's next.
I'm gonna if somebody else can Oh God, I'm about to reboot my computer here, so I can't see the list.
I believe it's Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So the usual issue and pull request review, and I've started working on the V8 5.6 update, which should become stable next week. So I already opened the pull request to see how it works on the CI, and that's it.
Okay. Is that all of them? Is that everybody?
I'm
I
just
think
looking
so.
at Trevor here, or next person who's filled things in is Rich.
Yeah, I think we've hit everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, my laptop's still coming up. I can't see the review for last week, so if somebody wants to read that off from the before we get into the agenda.
Yeah, I could read it real quick. I put the 3 items that are not on the agenda again next week at the top. So last week we reviewed the proposal to move the guides to Node.js.org. I know that happened this week, so I guess that was okay. Growing the group of releasers. We said, wasn't there last week, but I know 2 weeks ago we said that we were going to bring in and Italo, the 2 people. And then bring Node Inspector on the foundation. The CTC and the TSC both approved that, so we did that this week. And last week we talked about copyright, deprecation policy, process global being clobbered, and ES modules, which are all on the agenda again today. Do you want me to read the first item from the agenda, James? Can you see that?
I'm getting there right now. Okay, so,
I put the updating the copyright and the 2 things about process and deprecation policy
right.
up at the top. So that's the first 2 here. If you have anything to say about those.
So I will say on the copyright statement, there's really no updates. That is going before the board. There's a board meeting next week on the 30th, where this is scheduled to be discussed. They're going to review the proposed changes and basically get back to some other. I think that this is whether which one of those PRs they want to go with. Basically, they want to approve. There are a couple of changes to the revised PR, the one that has the revised header that I need to make this week, but those are more editorial. I would ask that anybody that takes a look at that has some feedback, please get that in before Friday. Because in any significant changes we make after the board looks at it, will end up having to be made, go through another board review, which will take another month. So please definitely get the comments in on this. Does anyone have any questions, comments, other things to discuss on the copyright stuff? Okay. Next one on here is 101.5.5, be robust when process global is clobbered. This is the thing, this is a reminder and for everyone, where if process is set to undefined or null or some other value, it could end up crashing Node. Ben had a pull request out there for making some changes here. I know, Bradley, you had some concerns about this, so you want to kind of...
Sure. We talked about it last week. The PR just has an outstanding thing where it needs to revert the process global so it is writable again. And Ben said he was okay with that last time, so I'm just waiting.
So it's waiting on the change. I'm sorry, that was PR 101, please. So is it pretty much just waiting on Ben to make the change in PR, or?
Yep, and then I'll flip to approve.
Okay. Anyone have any other thoughts or opinions on that one?
I'm not entirely sure if that is not going to break something or some valid use cases. I will still have to check that for some real packages.
So this PR only affects the native module wrapper by creating a special closure. So native modules always get the proper process object. I am sure somebody is using this in order to change native behavior, but that's exactly what we don't want to allow.
No, sometimes people define something like process. Sorry, I mean that sometimes they assign process or their own implementation to the process variable itself. And will that still work?
Once bin changes the outstanding thing preventing it from being merged, yes, it will still be a writable global variable.
So it looks like we just, at this point, just wait for the review, or wait for the update, do a little bit more review, and then decide from there.
So just to clarify, the global variable will be writable, but the idea is that you can't change internal behavior by overriding that.
Correct.
Okay, any other thoughts or opinions on that before we move on?
Also, regarding the general behavior is sometimes used in tests, like the one that I linked. I'm not sure if that is broken or not. I think that it still have to be checked.
So, Nikita, are you fine with just going in and just doing a review in the PR? Or do you think that there's a decision that we need to make here?
No, it's better to move that to GitHub.
Okay, so let's do that. All right, so PR 10116, this is the one for adding the code to warnings and adding deprecation codes. This has been out for a while. I'd like to get this landed this week. Kind of the final call for any objections. And assuming there are no objections, I'll get this landed on Friday.
Well, it's not an objection to the landing, but I made a comment about the opening of the file descriptor multiple times. Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw it. I was going to take a look at that. I'm taking a look at that tonight and update it. To make any changes that are necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time for doing a review. Before we commit too much on the application IDs, I want to make sure everyone's okay with the basic format. Just the prefix, the DEP, and then I think it's forward numbers 000, whatever. Monotonically increasing. I didn't really want to make it any more complicated than that. Just want to make sure everyone's okay with that before we kind of stamp it in stone. If anyone does have any input on that, please weigh in. Like I said, I want to get it landed on Friday. Yeah. Any other comments on that or any questions on that one before we move on? Next up is 7964 deprecation policy. Again, this is PR seeking to get clarity around our deprecation policy. I was supposed to go in and make a couple extra notes talking about what the more significant changes are. I did not do that. I will do that today. Mainly, we just need review. So what I'd like to do is basically call for a vote next week on this. If we, assuming we don't get, review LGTMs in to get out to enough to from the CTC to land it there, then call for a vote next Wednesday to decide whether we're going to land it or not. So please definitely take some time this week to review that PR and weigh in on any feedback you may have. Anyone have any comments or concerns on that so far? Okay, we're getting through this agenda pretty quick. The next one is 10282, enforce type check and deep strict equal. I'm not sure who put this one on, and I'm solving some issues here, so I'm not able to pull it up. Who added this one?
Looks like Rich added it.
See if I can actually pull it up here. Okay, there we go.
I'm not sure if there's a comment associated with that.
It does say Semper Major. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, I think so. By the looks of it. Also because technically it's on the assert API and the assert API is locked.
Yeah, I think that's the primary concern. There's been a number, some discussion and back and forth on it a little bit, but I think the key question was, do we want to make a potentially breaking Semper Major change to a locked module? I think that's where the key question comes down.
Question is like, what does this actually change?
It changes some test expectations, like it negates the expected results of some tests.
The change itself, it makes sense. It makes it a little more robust. But it does make the checking stricter. I think that is where the potential break comes in.
Or not stricter in the case of regexes, I guess. So from looking at the test, it looks like additional properties on regexes are now ignored, which kind of makes sense because I mean you're usually just gonna be checking like the actual what's in like regular regex stuff, but
I don't see a ton of harm in accepting this, but I mean it does go back to if the module is locked, then are we going to accept changes of it or not? I think that's kind of the key issue. Is anyone against making this change? Does does silence mean no, or does silence mean not sure?
I'm not quite sure about it. So I'm really worried about changing this module because it will have a big repercussions over the ecosystem because everyone relies on it. Browserify relies on it. Everyone does it. Does have a copy of it. So I would be really careful with this. So I don't know if we could maybe start with something less intrusive for now.
All right, I think that's fair. Anyone else?
I mean, it looks like there's a lot of sort of more general refactoring here. I'm not sure if that's just what I'm seeing or not. It might be, well, I guess there's 5 commits in it, so maybe be best to have everything else sort of taken out, and then the actual bits that could be Semper Major, have those separately.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much it does or doesn't change here, so.
That's actually, I think that's a good point. Let's see, 5 commits. Okay.
I mean, so a Citgem run was run against this, but I think, I'm not sure if they still have data from that because it was fairly old now. No, we don't. So that would need to rerun. I wonder if we really test enough to check whether we might not have more repercussions from this than we'd like from what we currently test in Citgem.
I
mean, I don't really expect that most of the large modules that we'd be checking would run into these particular things that seem to have changed.
I'm going to be seeing Miles here in an hour and a half or so. I'll ask him if he knows if any of the modules that we're checking in Citgem right now make the use of CERT in these particular areas. I will. I'll just see what we can do there. I think separating out the Semper Major commits, possibly even do a separate PR from whatever here is, would definitely make it better to review, easier to review. I think it's a great suggestion. Okay. Basically, separate those out. Yeah, except for Josh here, separate out the next the Semper Major parts. Do additional testing. Sit, Jim. And then just kind of review the results from those. Okay, good. I think we're good. So that essentially it's still blocked. Yeah. Okay. Let's see, next one up is 8381, support for environment defined proxy. Let's see who added this one. Sam Roberts added this. Okay. But this has come up a number of times in the past about whether core should support the ability to set proxy for environment variable. I know that there are I think there's a couple of user line options for this already. but should it be in core? It's a pretty common thing with a number of platforms. So we've always kind of taken the position in core that it's not necessary to be in core. I guess the discussion is, do we need to revisit that?
I feel very strongly about it. So I'm totally against having this high level functionality in core because it will introduce many moving parts and in general will make user applications behave in a less, how do I word it, in less expected way. So like it does so many things under the hood, so it tries. It's hard to expect. It's hard to understand what's happening on the application. So I'm against this high level functionality.
Does anyone know if it's possible to do it from a userland module to like something that you would require at the start of the application and modifies the HTTP module?
I believe there are a couple of modules that kind of do some weird, funky things to make it possible.
There are attempts, yes, but NPM moved off those and has its own entire proxy logic because of this problem.
Okay. So how about this? What if we would provide sort of an API hooks for the userland module? So instead of having a full-blown proxy implementation, we would just have sort of API and HTTP modules that would use it internally in core for all modules. So something like this, I guess, could work.
Can you almost just do this by like replacing the? Can you do this like within a HTTP agent or something? Just replace the global agent or something, or does that not work?
I think actually it will work. Yeah.
I was trying to think. I think we already have some.
So there's a problem.
APIs that will work for this.
The problem with the global agent is sometimes people use modules that do HTTP requests on your behalf, and you can't really control their agents usually. So.
But all of their agents inherit from the global one in some sense. So if we could override the class definition for the agent, it will probably make it work for everyone.
Presumably, I would check against HyperQuest as the canonical example.
So I guess, I mean, the idea there is not necessarily to have something that would be automatically inherited by everybody, but an API hook that would allow those who want to tap into it to be able to.
Yeah. Either way, I think we shouldn't have the proxy code inside of the core. So I think we should just provide hooks in one way or another.
Do you suspect that those hooks can be done in a way that's not going to have too much of a negative impact on performance?
It will probably have some negative impact, but you mean hooks, sorry, or proxy?
The hooks. I wouldn't imagine it would be. I'm just trying to think through the potential issues.
No, I don't think there are any impact possible from introduction of the hooks.
Yeah, I think I'd be good with that approach. Does anyone else on the call feel strongly that we should have this in with the environment variables and having it where it's automatically set? Bradley, right, based on the comments you said, it seems like you would be okay with having the environment variables there. Do you think they're needed, or?
I'm neutral. I'm just saying that we should probably test against a module we know doesn't use the global agent.
Right. Okay, well, we can take that back, kind of that position back to the thread. Fedor, did you want to take some time to kind of work up the API hook, or
I already posted some like preliminary comments with brief description of what have been suggested here. So I guess it's probably enough for now. Let's see how it will evolve.
Definitely see your comment that you just posted. Okay, cool. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and move on, continue the conversation there in GitHub and see how that evolves. I want to talk about modules, but I'm going to push that to the very end. Let's do issue 10187, add node inspect. Josh, was this one yours?
Actually, Rich asked that we put on the agenda for today. That one in particular is about, well, Node Inspect. We've said that it's going to go in depth. I think that in that PR, I think Anna actually made an extra commit that integrates it where Node space debug is now, like the CLI debugger. I guess Rich is saying take a look at that. I think it might be ready to land. I haven't looked at it for a month or two.
No, I'm still not entirely sure about having it vendored in as a dependency rather than having it just in the source files like the previous debugger was.
Yeah. Would it include node inspect with the default build? Like, so if we do a release build, would node inspect be included in that deliverable, in the tar file or whatever?
I imagine so for either way, yeah.
Are we ready to take that step? Have it go out in the release?
I think we need a little more review on that. In fact, I would like to do a review, another one. And if anyone else can do one, I think that would be helpful too. I think it needs a little more review before we can land, if that's the question.
Well, I would like a little bit more review before it lands, but I'm thinking that I'd prefer it not to be enabled in a release build and for a little while longer. We can have it in core and have people using it as experimental, just to kind of make sure everything is working before we switch it off in a release build. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Basically switching it so that it's off by default, or not available by default in a release. Now, if we can get that review done quick and prove it out quick, fantastic. I think it'd be fantastic to have this in before 8.0. But I would really like to be a little more conservative with it. Okay. Anyone have any concerns here? No. Okay, so I guess it's just pretty much take this back to GitHub, do more review, try to get it at least landed in master fairly quickly, so we can get some people playing around with it. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay. Modules. Node EPS 39. Let's see, we have about 20 minutes left. Bradley, do you want to give us an update?
I mean, there's not much going on update-wise. We had a call last week discussing the differences of if we shift a sync or async loader, and next week I'm going to call for a vote on which people would like to do. Basically, we're not talking about import as a function ever being synchronous. Specification says that is always asynchronous. We're talking about how I/O happens and if it blocks things, and the return value for requiring an ES module. So in an async loader world, requiring ESM returns a promise, which is a breaking change from how Babel works, but we also have several other breakages from Babel, like the named imports of CommonJS not being something we can ship immediately. So that vote will be next week. If you go and check a doodle I sent to the entire CTC, it's got some slides you can review. If you have any questions, let me know. As for TC39 that's going on this week, today we should get to discussing a grammar change for disambiguating source texts. So that would mean given any source text, you would be able to figure out if it is a module or if it is a script. It's going to be hard to pass, just given some concerns about it, but TC39 has mixed feelings. Generally, what I've seen when they have mixed feelings is you don't go ahead. The default route is not to change the standard. So we'll see how it goes. So those are the two decisions we have, really, is async versus sync loader. And if we get the grammar change, do we want to do double parsing versus file extension? Which we had a vote a long time ago about doing the double parsing would be the preferred approach. So that is our current stance unless something has changed. And somebody wants to bring up that the file extension is their preferred way to do it. So, yes, that's it.
Okay. Anybody have any questions, thoughts, concerns? Well, that was easy. Do we have anybody watching the live stream, Jeremiah?
Yep.
Right, do we put out a call for questions?
Yeah, so I posted that already. There's hellos from Tunisia, China, and Germany, and then someone has a fairly large question. So someone asks if essentially if there would ever be code protection in Node.js. So some sort form of way of protecting source code that you would run with Node.js. So say you ship this to a client and you didn't want them to be able to read some code for a Node.js server. Would there ever be any sort of plans or ideas, or is there any way to do that?
I know of 2 existing solutions for this, so I'm hesitant that it would ever make it into core since there are companies built upon this already. And that would be significantly difficult to create something in core that would be safe in the sense that they couldn't read code reliably.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if we were ever able to add that to core, or if it's something that we would necessarily want to do.
But just for the record, I know JX Core uses make snapshot to try to hide it, but it's still accessible from any sort of debugging context, and require.cache can access things. JS Scrambler is the other big wig in this area, and they do a lot of code munging and inserting things to make it hard to debug code. So,
I mean, I guess once WebAssembly is supported, if you retranslate your JavaScript to WebAssembly, then at least they wouldn't get the JavaScript code out of it.
Yeah. It's just being able to provide those kind of protections reasonably is really, really freaking complicated. And being able to make assurances. And they would require some fairly significant changes to core that I don't think that we would be willing to make.
Yeah. I think personally that if you really need to do this and no other option will work, probably your best bet is to go a sort of like embedded style route with Node.js, where you like modify Node.js a bit to essentially read like some other encoding part of the file that, you know, is then like JavaScript, or maybe in the future WebAssembly or whatever, that's like scrambled not like in plain source or whatever, and have like in the binary, like have like parts of the binary protected that are for reading that, and get rid of like debugging parts of Node and stuff. It'd be fairly involved, to be honest.
The main problem is the way JavaScript has toString on scripts. So you can just read scripts. They are permanently stored in memory as large strings, even if you do all of that. So you can just map it out.
Before we can even do it, I mean, like I said, there's so many changes that have to be made. We'd have to be able to have the ability to only run trusted code, and be able to verify that only trusted code is running. You have to be able to secure the memory space, or you can do exactly what Brad was just describing, just extract it right out of memory, or even use JavaScript built-in APIs to get it. Yeah, it'd be a massive change. So hopefully that answers the question. If somebody wants to work on it and propose it, and they come up with a PR that, you know, that suggests how to do it, then I'm sure we'd all be happy to look at it. Any other questions? Jeremiah?
No, I don't think so.
I was going to mention I put it in the thread for the meeting today, but maybe we should try to use CTC review for some of the items, like the copyright discussion and deprecation policy, where they're mainly just to say, hey, everybody know that have these on your radar and review them. Might make it easier for people preparing for the meeting or reviewing the notes and stuff.
So you know, there's no difference between labeling it CTC agenda and CTC review then, if we're going to like be talking about at the meeting. the purpose of the CTC review label initially, although it seems to have evolved into not doing this anymore, was to flag things that we actually don't want to review at the meeting that we want to try to process on GitHub only. And that's not necessarily contradicting what you're saying, Josh, but just providing a little bit of context.
It might be useful actually to essentially have a list of them for the meeting and just like list off what they are, but not discuss them. Would that make the entire thing a little bit more visible?
Yeah,
I think
that's
so.
it.
I like that approach.
Yeah, it sounds good to me too.
Well, I think that concludes the public portion of the meeting. Thanks to everyone who's listening for joining in. We're going to go ahead and adjourn the public portion. So, Jeremiah, let me know when we're on.
Okay.